So, I'm not starting the project today. I did some paperwork on Thursday. It's been a long weekend. And I'm not starting the technical stuff today. I'm just doing 90% of it right now. Okay, this shirt looks a lot more brown with this color suit on. That's better. That's better. What was I saying? Okay, so this video is going to be a lot more rambly than it should be, especially with my level of editing. But here's what I'm thinking. The rubric thing says to use like Bongo or like Zoom to film the video. So those kids are going to have like a lot of in there and time going, so I'm just going to click to the next thing. But I don't have that because I've got editing. So I had to include in a bit more rambling. Include potato. It's fine. Okay, so everything's set up. Well, except the firewalls. It has been 2 hours. 2 whole hours. And I have made no progress. It doesn't work. This thing to the Pan OS doesn't work. I haven't gotten either of the routers to ping. I've thrown it in Packet Tracer. It's not going well. So what I've done is I've bodged the VM into my local home network. I'm going to configure it here, management profiles and all. Put it back on so I can configure it from the server. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other one so I get the firewall configurations done. And I'll come back to the routers later. I can show you it works. Well, I can show you what's configured. I got nothing else. Everything that possibly could have gone wrong in the hypervisor literally blowing up has. Okay. The network's changed a little bit. I've added internal networks, a couple more routes. You know what it was? Okay, for starters, I had to get a little bit of help from the Palo Alto Genie because these VMs are non-standard. That doesn't count. They have 5 interfaces. One of them is a management interface. The first one isn't an interface because mostly it's the last one that's a management interface. The first one's a management interface. So if I shifted all my configurations down, the Palo Altos worked. For the Ciscos, I deleted and recreated the vSwitch. That's it. That's all I did. I got a trace route all the way around, which means the network's set up. Which means I can finally start doing the assignment. It's been 5 hours. I'm starting to... You know what? No, I'm not starting to see the error in my ways. We learned a lot about Palo Alto's pain in the... We learned a lot about networking. Anyways. Okay, here we are. Everything's good to go. It took me 7 hours, a call to the heavens, which definitely isn't a person akin to ChatGPT, and we're ready to go. So let's start off on my router 1, and I'll show you around. We'll start off with the Gigabit Ethernet 1, which is connected to the firewall. Everything here is using /30s because I needed to fit it within my school subnet. Gigabit Ethernet 2 is connected to the other router, and then Gigabit Ethernet 3 is connected to my home network, the school's network, using an odd IP for reasons. And that is how we get internet access. Let's take a look at our routing table here. And you can see we've got the connections to my school's corporate network, as well as static routes to the firewall on the KW side, the firewall on the London side, and the London router, as well as the internal networks for testing. And then to test this out, I'm going to run a trace route from a test server I have on the Kitchener network all the way over to the London firewall. Okay, now let's take a look at the London router. Let's first of all show the interfaces, including Gigabit Ethernet 1, which is connected to the firewall, Gigabit Ethernet 2, which is connected to the other router in Kitchener, and then Gigabit Ethernet 3, which is DHCP to the school's network. Now that we're on the computer here, let's take a look at what's going on the firewall. Let's start in the Kitchener firewall, where I have all my interfaces configured, as well as all the zones needed for this. And I've got the virtual router set up with routes for the VPN. And here I've got my virtual router with a default route to send everything up to the internet and any traffic over to London through the VPN tunnel here. With the configuration for the tunnel here, I've got my policies set up here. With internal allowed to go to WAN and DMZ, I've got guests only allowed to go to WAN, and I've got a rule that allows VPN traffic to the internal network. Here I've got my NAT rule configured for any internet routed traffic to use the IP of the firewall as the static IP. And I've got my tunnel configured here, as well as the gateway, with the tunnel interface functioning here in its own zone. And the route that lets all users' traffic go from this firewall straight to the internet is set up on the router itself. Now let's take a look at London's firewall. Here we've got the virtual router set up, as well as the interfaces here, looking at the tunnel first for the VPN. And then let's hop on over to the main interfaces I've got configured for VPN and the DHCP server on the internal, which I also have in Kitchener. Here are the zones I've got configured. Here's the first half of the IPsec tunnel. And then down here I've got the gateway for it. And then as requested, I've allowed guests to go out to the WAN network and internal users out to the WAN network. Policies that let users and guests go out to the WAN, and I've also got a rule that's misnamed here that allows any internal user to also go through the VPN. And then while we're here, let's take a look at the NAT policies that allow internal packets to get translated and sent out to the WAN zone using the firewall's public IP. And that should be it. Fine. Okay. So, yeah, this was not done on the school's infrastructure. So if you want to see what's really done, let's take a look here. To start, I've got the 5 VMs, including 2 Palo Altos, 2 Cisco routers, and a test server I've got connected on the KW side just to run some pings, get that VPN working. And then each of those servers has their own virtual switch to make sure these networks are isolated and running through the proper devices. Each connection has its own vSwitch. For example, on test server 1, it's connected to the KW LAN, which is connected to the Palo Alto, which has the network 1 connected to the management network, since that's actually not an interface, it's the management interface. And then on the firewall, you have the LAN and the interface connecting to the router there, which follows up to the CSR here, which has a connection to the management network, we'll call it. It's got the interface to the firewall, and it's got the connection to the London router, which goes down vice versa. Well. I stand corrected. With a little bit more shaking, baking, and reapplying some routing policies, I was able to get everything online. We got a couple green tunnels. If I can find where they are. A couple green tunnels. Bunch of good big pings that I can't show you because the thing's timed out. Ran the little commands. Did a lot of troubleshooting on the firewall. But I got it to work. So I think we should take another moment here to appreciate my little environment. Now, I'm aware I might have been able to do this with a single virtual switch and port groups, but I thought this was just the easiest and quickest way to reduce any variables along the way. And that should be it. Damn, look at me go. It only took me 9 hours. And I did it all while using the school provided kits.